My friends, what we are witnessing today is far more than a military strike or a regional skirmish. It is an economic earthquake, shaking the very foundation of Russia's financial core. The Black Sea, long considered Moscow's vital artery to the world, has turned overnight into a theater of chaos and paralysis. A sudden, surgical, and devastating strike has crippled one of Russia's most critical lifelines, its main oil port. In a single night, the flow of power that fueled an empire has been silenced. When oil stops flowing in Russia, everything else begins to crumble. For decades, the Kremlin relied on its Black Sea export network as both an economic engine and a geopolitical weapon. The ports, stretching from Novorossiysk to Tuapse, were veins through which Moscow pumped its influence across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. But now, for the first time in modern history, those veins have run dry. Satellite images show fires raging through terminal zones, tankers stranded at sea, and refineries plunged into emergency shutdowns. The world watches as the unthinkable unfolds. Russia's economic heart stopped in its tracks. This is not just about oil, it's about power. It's about the illusion of invincibility being shattered in real time. The ruble has plunged, inflation is soaring. Moscow faces not only a military humiliation, but a financial catastrophe that strikes at the very soul of its economic control. For years, Putin's promise of energy stability was the bedrock of Russia's power projection. Today, that promise lies in ashes. And let there be no doubt, this strike was no accident. It was precise, calculated, and deeply symbolic. Whoever executed it knew exactly where to hit to create maximum chaos with minimal confrontation. This is economic warfare, a silent but devastating kind. Within hours, the tremors reached Moscow's markets. Energy contracts froze, shipping routes collapsed, and desperate attempts were made to reroute supplies through Turkey and the Arctic. But these are temporary veins, incapable of replacing the vast flow of the Black Sea. For Moscow, it's like losing its heart in the middle of the night. Western analysts are not merely observing the blast radius, they're measuring the aftershocks across the global economy. China, dependent on Russian crude, is reassessing its supply chains. OPEC is scrambling to adjust output to stabilize surging prices. And Europe, long trapped between energy dependence and moral resistance, is being forced to choose between principle and survival. This moment is a turning point, a reminder that in the 21st century, economic war can be more destructive than bombs. You can rebuild a refinery, but you cannot rebuild confidence overnight. The strike on the Black Sea port has done more than destroy steel and oil. It has pierced Russia's illusion of control. The scenes emerging are harrowing, tankers drifting helplessly offshore, thick plumes of smoke rising over charred terminals, pipelines cut and silent. The once bustling trade artery that powered Moscow's dominance has been severed. The shock in the Kremlin was immediate. Oil pumps offline, export valves jammed, data systems blinking red. For a nation that draws nearly half its budget from energy revenues, this was not just an attack. It was an existential wound. The Kremlin's initial response was confusion, then denial, then panic. Moscow's economic ministry rushed to assure investors that the situation was under control, but the markets knew better. The ruble continued to sink, insurance rates for ships in the region skyrocketed, and Asian buyers began quietly shifting contracts elsewhere. The world could smell the weakness. Inside the Kremlin's sealed chambers, fear spread faster than the flames. Phones buzzed with encrypted messages. Officials convened in emergency midnight meetings, and financial elites began moving assets abroad, bracing for collapse. The central bank was forced into emergency liquidity injections to prevent the run on deposits, and in the silence between the alarms, one realization echoed through Russia's corridors of power. The empire had been struck where it hurts most. This is not just a blow to infrastructure, it's a blow to identity. For years, Russia wielded energy as a weapon, using oil and gas to pressure nations, shape alliances, and fund wars. But the illusion of that power has shattered. Investors see danger where they once saw dominance. Allies who once relied on Moscow's energy are now quietly seeking alternatives. The Black Sea, once a symbol of Russian ambition, has become the graveyard of its economic pride. And yet, the strike was not chaotic. It was deliberate, surgical, intelligent. Whoever carried it out knew exactly where to hit to create maximum chaos with minimal confrontation. Russia had spent billions fortifying its coastal defenses, boasting about advanced radars, missile interceptors, and impenetrable cyber networks. Yet in one night, all that boasting turned to smoke. The attackers slipped through as though those defenses were never there. The humiliation is immense. Moscow's once celebrated security architecture now stands exposed, outdated, compromised, and riddled with corruption. Behind the silence, chaos brews. Intelligence officials point fingers, military leaders blame system failures, energy executives whisper about internal sabotage. The fear of betrayal is tearing the Kremlin from within. Every dismissal, every interrogation deepens the paranoia. Moscow now faces not only an external enemy, but an internal collapse of trust. And as the Kremlin scrambles for answers, the world races to adapt. Oil prices soar to heights unseen since the Gulf War. European leaders meet in emergency sessions. Washington forms crisis task forces. Asian markets stumble as the shock ripples through global supply chains. The world is reminded once again, control over oil is control over civilization itself. And tonight, that control has shifted. No one has claimed responsibility. No government has confessed. Yet the silence is the loudest signal of all. This was not the work of amateurs. It was too clean, too intelligent, too deliberate. Analysts whisper of high-level coordination, satellite guidance, perhaps even cyber infiltration deep inside Russia's systems. This strike feels less like an act of war and more like a demonstration of capability. A message to Moscow: we see you, we can reach you, and we can dismantle your power without ever crossing your borders. The ambiguity is strategic. When no one claims responsibility, fear fills the vacuum. The Kremlin turns inward, doubting its allies, distrusting its own generals. Paranoia becomes policy. That is the true genius of modern warfare, not destruction, but doubt, not conquest, but control. This was more than a strike. It was a lesson, a warning that the world has entered a new era where economic lifelines are the battlefields and information is the ultimate weapon. No empire, no matter how vast, can hide its vulnerabilities forever. The strike on the Black Sea port has redrawn the boundaries of power, revealing a simple truth. In today's world, the mightiest can fall without a single soldier crossing their gate. As the smoke rises over the Black Sea, a haunting silence lingers over Moscow. Not the silence of peace, but the silence that follows realization. The realization that empires built on oil can burn just as easily as the fields they exploit. The question now is not whether Russia will recover, but whether it will ever again feel invincible. Because once a superpower learns that even its strongest asset can be struck down in the dark, it never truly sleeps again.